Welcome to Prepare For Takeoff. I'm the creator and host, Terry L. Cyrus. We're the podcast dedicated to amplifying Black excellence. Every week, we sit down with a proven professional or a rising entrepreneur. And this week, we're sitting down with John Ferguson, Chief Human Resource Officer for NASCAR. John, what's up, fam?
What's going on, Terry? I'm so happy that we are here together in this space, in this place, and in this time. Thank you so much for the invitation to join your podcast. Super excited.
Hey, man, thanks for accepting. I know you have a lot of things on your to-do list, and I'm sure that NASCAR keeps you busy, man. And to just give us some of your time, I greatly appreciate it.
For sure. I will say they keep me busy and they keep me in the fast lane, no pun intended.
Right, keep you in the fast lane, man. Shout out to the brothers. I see you a lifetime member, Root to the
Yes,
Q's.
sir. Yes, shout out to the Q's.
You and me both lifetime members and our beloved fraternity. There's so many brothers that are doing phenomenal things, and not just in our fraternity, because I want to shout out the rest of the D9, but right now, shout out to the Q's.
There you go. Shout out to the brothers of Omega. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So John, talk to us, man. Where did you grow up at, bro?
So I'm originally from Greenville, South Carolina, born and raised. That is where everything I know, like, and love, and they gave me this foundation that I've been able to build from. And I have been nurtured from. They say it takes a village to raise a child. That's my village. And I've met many other villages along the way. But Greenville, South Carolina is where I'm from. My mom and my brother and all my family's still there. So that will always be home.
My home, as I'm sure you know, is West Virginia, Charleston to be exact. I feel the same way, man. I've been gone for a long time, bro. And I'm telling my age a little bit, but I've been gone for going on 31 years. But I still claim West Virginia as my home. I've been in, the New York, New Jersey area for all that time. And despite all of what I've grown to appreciate about the area, I still have a near and dear place in my heart for West Virginia. It made me the man that you see today. As it relates to all of the values and principles that it instilled in me. And to just have some of those same relationships present day. I can't think of one person that I've met who can say that they still are in constant contact with their childhood friends, that people that I know from here. And it may be a handful, but when I say my entire neighborhood is still connected, because we grew up in a predominantly white state, as I'm sure you can imagine, but we grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood. Like, if to be exact, Pinewood is the only Black subdivision in West Virginia.
Wow.
And it's produced a lot of people who have went on to have a lot of success, whether people who attended Ivy League institutions, people who went on to practice medicine, to practice law. It doesn't matter what those beginnings are, how humble they may be. Like, it was a brother in our neighborhood that used to drive a brown hoopty.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hold us accountable, bro, because we were kids. We used to clown his car. Bro, his bumper, it was in need of a repair, but I guess his ribs was touching and he couldn't afford to replace that bumper. He had a rope holding it up.
Hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So you said it was Pinewood?
Pinewood, it's in the shadows of West Virginia State.
Okay.
I attended, which is right outside of Charleston. The name of the town is actually Dunbar.
Okay.
But the brother who was driving that brown hoopty, he got the last laugh because at some point his fortunes changed. And then I found out later, the person that used to drive that brown hoopty was T.D. Jakes.
Come on.
I kid you not, man.
What Mike Jones say back then, they ain't want me. Now I'm hot.
Exactly. And that's all of our stories, man. I've seen people, courtesy of social media, the people that wasn't really like that in high school, and you see them now, and they had a transformation. And I'm here for it because at the end of the day, that's what I'm all about. I want to be able to help people amplify their best selves. So whether I have anything to do with it or I can watch it from the sidelines, then I'm here for it. Because I think at the end of the day, we as a people, considering what we had to navigate, we are some of the most exceptional people on earth.
Yes.
And I think that's tied to our point of origin as it relates to the motherland. Despite what has been taken away from us or whatever, look at brothers like myself and you. I want to be able to help you tell your story. And I know you said you're from South Carolina, and then at some point, I think you transitioned to the DMV area, correct?
Yes. Yes. So from Greenville, South Carolina, you're from Pinewood. I'm from Meadowwood. So very similar sort of neighborhood as you described it. But I went to Furman University, which is in Greenville, South Carolina. So I was kind of close to home. Wasn't necessarily, I was curious to branch out, but I also was like, let me stay nearby. So I went to Furman University, majored in political science, and that's what got me to the DMV. So I moved to DC because I was a poli-sci major. And that made all the perfect sense. I'm like, hey, let me get to DC. Let me get into politics. This is going to work out. Little did I know, God had a different path for me. So I ended up landing my first full-time job in HR and just really never looked back. I like to say it was a lot of the transferable skills that I had between growing up through grade school, going to college, always being involved in student council, always being a student leader on campus, joining the greatest fraternity out there, Omega Psi Phi. So all those things gave me foundation and life lessons on leadership. I'll also give a big shout out just to my church family. A lot of my public speaking, a lot of opportunities for me to be a leader were nurtured from the time I was, big enough to start walking and talking. But with that, that's what brought me to Washington, D.C. And I just kind of never looked back. I took life by the horns. When I moved to D.C., believe it or not, I did not have a job. So I stepped out on faith and a prayer for things to work out, and they did. A little known fact, I waited tables for the first 3 years of my career while working full time. But I say that to showcase the hustle that it takes. A lot of times when we see these podcasts, a lot of times, even your reference to TD Jakes, people see the highlight reel. They see what we post on LinkedIn. They see what we have on social media, but they may not recall those rough drafts. There's a lot of rough drafts that never made it to the social media posts. And so one of the things that I want to do throughout my career, throughout my life, is to make sure that I lower the waterline on that. Because guess what? My mistake doesn't need to be your mistake. So if I can help you overcome that and you then tackle some other challenge, yes. So we should be lifting as we climb and helping people build from the foundation that we've established. I mean, there's the saying that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and I truly believe that because we are our ancestors' wildest dream.
I think one more thing that's going to probably be in your future could very well be ministry, bro, because you out here preaching to them.
I'm not going to say never, but I will let the good Lord lead me to where he needs to lead me.
I can see it. When you said you went into HR, was it in sports or was it in another industry?
Yeah, so I started my career in HR and hospitality. So I was working for Hyatt hotels. It was a great foundation to getting in sort of entry level to HR. Worked for a dynamic leader at the time that really instilled a bunch of maturity in me and professionalism. My leader at the time, she didn't play no games, but I needed that because that set me up for a successful career because she taught me how to handle business and to treat business early in my career. So I didn't have to have those stumbling blocks later. She helped me understand that power early on.
So at some point you went from hospitality to sports, or was there another industry that you pivoted from?
Yeah, so I went from hospitality into sports. And there's a lot of transferable synergy there between hospitality. You're still interacting with guests. You're doing a level of hosting and entertainment. So I ended up leaving Hyatt and applied for a job with Monumental Sports Entertainment. I kind of fell into sports. A lot of people that work in sports have traditionally been striving for that for a long time, throughout childhood. I just kind of fell into it. But I applied for a job with Monumental and it started as an HR manager for them. And so Monumental Sports and Entertainment represents the Washington Wizards, Washington Capitals, Washington Mystics, Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., and a few other properties. So it's a very dynamic and evolving business. And I was there for almost 10 years.
So you kind of grew up professionally there. 10 years is a long time to be at one place.
Correct. Especially in these days, I do a lot of research on the generations in the workforce. And we see that, people being somewhere for a long amount of time is becoming a thing of the past. So, you have baby boomers, 15 years was a minimum for they stay there. But when you look at Gen Z who's entering the workforce, you might get 2, you might get 3. And if you're really lucky, you might get 5. So it really informs how we have to think about retention a little bit differently. But yeah, I was there for just shy of 10 years. I really learned a lot. I like to say I really cut my teeth in HR there. Work with some dynamic leaders that set me up for a path of success. And I will say, anywhere I go to work, I want it to be known as a great place to work and a great place to be from. And Monumental was just that.
Then from Monumental, you transitioned into NASCAR. So how did that transition happen?
How did that transition happen? So I was sort of on my second half of my time at Monumental. My role started to evolve, additional scope, additional responsibility. So I enrolled in Georgetown for strategic diversity and inclusion certification. So that kind of got bit by the learning bug again. I was like, okay, this wasn't bad. I had been out of school for a while. And so I said, no, let's keep this going. And that was when I decided to enroll at Howard University to get my MBA. So I was an MBA, graduated in May of 21. But with that, I really saw how I could kind of put this pressure on myself because I worked full time and did my MBA. So I was a full time student, full time, employee, full time husband, full time father, and then layer on top of that a global pandemic. So I really sort of had the opportunity to test myself and see how I could, stretch my capacity and my bandwidth to achieve something that was meaningful to me. But then towards the end of that season, I started getting just recruiters reaching out for, various roles and opportunity. And the funny thing is at first I was declining them because I never saw myself moving beyond DC from a location. I thought I would go to DC and then come back to South Carolina. So at first I was kind of like, no, I'm good. People call. I'm like, no, this is somewhere else. I can't take the call. So I called one of my mentors, who's actually a fraternity brother of ours. He said, you got to flow to where the opportunities are. And he said, so take those calls, like just take the call and figure out what the role is. And he's encouraged me to have a conversation with my wife to say, like, would we relocate? Now, my wife's a military brat. So she's like, I figured we would move. I was the only one who had the impression that we wouldn't. So I'm thankful for the guidance and mentorship and brotherhood because it helps you open your eyes to see things that you just may not naturally see. And to uncover those opportunities that may exist. So a friend of mine shared that NASCAR was looking for a new CHRO. And then I got connected with a search firm. And from the first call, something felt different about it. And I firmly believe that at times you're led somewhere because I wasn't sure. Anytime you change careers, anytime you relocate, you're taking a risk. You're betting on yourself. But what I learned in that season of grad school is that I'll bet on myself because I'll make a way. I'll figure it out. And then early in my career, one of my leaders taught me, you always want to leave your footprint. And I was like, tell me more about that. Because she was teaching me this in my first year in the HR as a coordinator. She's like, what's going to be your footprint? And that really is speaking to what will be your legacy. How will this place be better because you spent some time here, you invested relationships here. And so when I think back over my career, I like to say that I've left good footprints. I've gotten in some good trouble, in the words of our good brother John Lewis, but that's all been positive because I've been led to every place that I've gone, and I'm so excited to see what the future will have in store.
I say to people all the time that it's imperative that tomorrow is to some extent an unknown as it relates to where it's going to lead us, because we don't want to be prisoners of our mind, because we have brothers and sisters that are actually incarcerated and they know what tomorrow's going to bring, the same day that yesterday and the day brought. We can't have that same mindset. We have to embrace the unknown.
For sure.
Shout out to the bro who helped you see the bigger picture of going with the flow and allowing to see where that took you, because we've all been there. What was that transition like once you went from Monumental to NASCAR? You changed sports. You went from basketball and hockey with the Capitals to NASCAR. What was that transition like as far as culture is concerned?
The transition was familiar. Sports is going to be sports, so that part I felt good about and knew how to manage those relationships. I would say, and I knew HR, but motorsports. So like the industry of sports was sports, but motorsports, there was a learning curve there. My first NASCAR race was the week before I started. Of course, I grew up in middle school. I had the NASCAR jacket because it was the cool swag to have, but I had never been to a race. And so when I went, my older brother and I went together, and it was the Coke Zero Sugar 400 here in Daytona Beach. And it was phenomenal. And I'll tell you, one of the first realizations that I had was how many of us were represented in the sport already. So I'm thinking I'm coming in, not sure what I'm going to discover. But what I saw when I got there and walked down pit road and walked the track grounds and just took in the whole race, I saw a lot of familiar faces. And so that gave me a lot of pride in the road that would be ahead and understanding the landscape, but also helped me understand the opportunities that exist. For me, that transition really was rooted in making people NASCAR curious. I want you to see me and maybe say, he's there. I didn't expect to see him there. Or maybe, hey, I came to a race. I didn't expect to see them there. And whoever he and them and they are can be a wide variety of things. But I want you to know that there's a lot of people representing the space. So if you give it a shot, I guarantee you'll be NASCAR curious and you'll want to see more and you want to learn more. And since my time there, the sport has really started to see an increase in viewership, and that's the team effort. That's not from HR, but just the popularity and the welcoming nature of the sport has really seen a growth and expansion. So it's been a phenomenal journey, and I'm excited for the good work that my colleagues and I have done. And I'll tell you, that transition would not have been possible without my wife, Dr. Uwe Ferguson. So if she wasn't my partner and helping me to see what I probably couldn't even see for myself, none of this would be. So I encourage everybody, get somebody that's on your team that believes in you, someone that can help you see what your special power is. Because I'm a firm believer, Terry, we don't recognize our superpowers. Everybody has a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's yourself, you just think, oh, well, maybe everybody else is good at this. It's people external to you that will validate, no, Terry, this is what makes you special. No, John, this is what makes you special. So make sure you surround yourself with people that invest in you, that believe in you, and that want to see you continue to grow and elevate. You know, I heard someone say a couple of years ago, you should have your own personal board of directors. I encourage people to do that. And your personal board of directors should not be everybody that agrees with you. It should be people that will challenge you, people who often disagree with you, because that will propel you to better. And so that was really important. But I want to give my wife a quick shout out there. Dr. Uwe Ferguson, she's the reason why a lot of things can happen. And so I'm grateful for her partnership and support over the years.
That's truly a blessing. And I was just watching a podcast and they were saying one of the most important partnerships that you will embark on is marriage, because that partner, you guys, in the eyes of God, that's when two become one. And if you guys aren't in unison, then that's going to be problematic. And, you want to find people that elevate you. I think in relationships, one of two things are going to happen. Someone's going to elevate you or they're going to deflate you. And we have
there's only one way it can go, though, in my mind. We can only have elevation.
Absolutely. It's all about elevation, because I'm the kind of person that I'm going to be very intentional to walk in my purpose on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes back to how I was raised, because my mom and dad, they let me know who they wanted me to kind of align myself with, and more importantly, who they didn't want me to align myself with. I have an older brother and sister, and I've always watched by learning from what it is I've seen them do. Mm-hmm. So with my brother, he's also the Bruz, he's spring 88 Theta Psi, I'm spring 91 Theta Psi. And I remember my brother was still getting in trouble. And I remember saying, I might have been like 7 or 8. I said, I'm not getting, as they call them down south, I'm not getting any more whoopings.
There you go.
I'm good. I know what to do and what not to do.
That's part of that foundation building.
Absolutely. So I'd say early on, I learned to listen. I had enough humility to listen. And I just carried that on through my adulthood. So when I met other people, it goes back to my childhood. I learned how to listen. I learned how to be a student of the room. I learned how to learn through observation, learn through what I've seen people doing, and more importantly, how to align myself. If you want to be something, surround yourself by the people who are being the thing you want to be. Because if you surround yourself by something that's opposite of that, then what's going to happen? I think it was John Hope who had said, if you hang with 9 people that's broke, you're going to be the 10th one.
There you go. Very true.
You have to surround yourself by like-minded individuals and learn how to, as you mentioned, lifting as we climb. You know how near and dear that is to us. But it's imperative that you do that. There's a lot of miles that I still have to go, but I have to be mindful of where I've come from.
For sure.
And I can't forget that. If I can, reach back to some other individuals, whether it's people on campuses, as I do a lot of HBCU outreach, or whether it's, with some of our younger fraternity brothers, or just people in general, man, I am always a proponent of how can I help? I've worn a number of different professional hats, outside of entertainment, prior to venturing into entertainment. But I think the common denominator then, now, and even prior to even going into the workforce is all about how can I help? I've always been a problem solver, whether it's for my friends, whether it's for business, how can I help? So I can't ask people for help if I'm not willing to help others.
For sure. For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
You said something there that stood out. We have a lot of commonalities. So I'm the baby of the family too. I just have an older brother. But I had the fortune of learning from his mistakes. Like, not going to do that. I saw the water was hot. Not going to touch that.
Exactly.
And you said, the art of listening. My mom instilled in me just the art of observing too. But I think that complements listening. You know, there was a time when I was younger and I got invited to this formal dinner, and I had never been to a formal dinner. And I think I was going with someone outside of my parents. And my mom said, whatever you do, if you get there, you don't know what to do, just look to your left, look to your right, and model what's happening. Because, you know, all this silverware is in front of me. But that was the best advice. And it's been lifelong advice that I have carried with me. Just observe. If you're in a new environment, you're not sure what the protocols are or how things are flowing, just sit back and observe. And my mom said, you never want to be loud and wrong. So with that, I learned the art of observation. I learned the art of listening. And I learned the art of really, you know, asking good questions so that because people want to see you be successful, to your point. I want to be successful. Other people want to be successful. So how can we help each other in that journey? So it's really important that I would stress here is relationships are key. Relationships are key. Nurture those relationships and understand that relationships are a two-way street. If I'm talking to young professionals, I think a lot of times you go out and you network. You're like, oh, I met Terry. Oh, I met John. You met us. But how are we building a relationship? And that's why I really believe in the power of LinkedIn. I think it's a great tool to build and nurture relationships. So maybe we don't talk every day, but when you post something or when you or you put a comment on something, that's you staying on someone's radar, especially if you're trying to grow your career. Because guess what? I talk to tons of interns, tons of college students, and I'm excited for all of their futures. But we only have 5 entry-level roles. And so it's kind of the game of who will surface in your memory of like, oh, I need to send this to Terry. Oh, I need to send this to this person. There's a young fellow that I'll give this quick story, and I realize I think it's rooted in shooting your shot. There's a young man named Jermaine who messaged me probably 2 years ago on LinkedIn. He was a freshman in college and is a NASCAR fan. And he's just like, I admire that you got this role. I just want to be a part of the sport in some kind of way. And so I took the call. And ever since then, we've had a mentor-mentee relationship, but it's been very casual. It wasn't as if he ever just asked me if I'd be his mentor. He just kept healthy touch points and balance and updating me what was going on with him. But what I really liked about his process or how he approached this was that he looked for a bunch of different avenues in which he could be a part of the sport. And so we had that initial conversation. He's like, hey, I'm really interested in an internship. And I said, hey, you probably want to wait till later in your college career before you kind of go in for the internship. But then the next couple of months, he messaged me and said, hey, I'm working at the track this weekend. I'm like, what track? He's like, oh, I signed up for a part-time job at Talladega Raceway. I'm going to be a ticket taker. That's hustle. He's like, even if it's not time for the internship, even if it's not time for the full-time job, I just want to be a part of the sport. What I tell a lot of young people is that, yes, you want those internships, but a lot of times those part-time jobs, there's more of them, there's higher volume, but guess what? They give you proximity and closer proximity to the people that you want to network with and build relationship with. And I say that story because Jermaine has been a part-time ticket taker and guest services rep at a couple tracks, at a couple races now. But guess what he did this year, Terry? He just got offered a full-time internship for this summer with NASCAR. And I'm going to tell you, I can't take credit for that. That young man put in that work by himself. I was happy to see him and partner with him on his journey, but he went into that interview. Of course, I helped him prepare, but I was like, look, you got to go execute.
Right.
And when I reflect on, you think about, legacy work, leaving your footprint. He is one of those stories and his success, and I know he's going to do good this summer. That really makes me proud of the space and time.
I always tell people that you have to build relationships that aren't rooted in transactions. I think a lot of people, especially, I'm sure you meet them, I meet them as well. There's a lot of people that I'm sure that want to get into the sport of NASCAR. There's a lot of people that want to get into the field of entertainment. And there a lot of times that they come at you from a transactional point of view. What can I stand to gain right now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for this. Can you give it to me? And the minute it's not immediate, that person disappears. And I always say to myself, how can they expect, to your point, to build a relationship with me? These opportunities are far and few between. And you're going to give those opportunities to people that you have a relationship with because these opportunities can literally change your life. And if you can change someone's life, you're going to change the life of somebody that you know, not the person that only wanted to see what you could do for them and then you didn't hear from them anymore. And for me, in my journey, similar to the brother that you said, I was that kid. We're talking 26 years ago. It was me trying to get in where I could fit in and trying to figure out how I can bring value to the room. And that room started, in the music industry. And then it eventually led to film. And then that eventually led to television. I tell people, John, then I can only tell you what worked for me. I'm not going to give you advice that I haven't necessarily been able to try myself and see the fruits of it. I can only tell you what I did. I always figured out a way to add value to the room. So that young brother, for him to know that at that early age, because I was older than him once, when I came to that realization, that brother, I'm sure 10 years from now, he is going to have some position of empowerment that doesn't necessarily reflect his peer group, because he gets it, and he gets it early. I think what helps us get it, as especially young professionals and just professionals that are in at the stages of our career, is mentorship. I think that mentorship is something that continues.
Oh yeah.
That's what it is. As you mentioned, it's only one way, and that's to elevate.
Mm-hmm.
So I can never get stagnant. And as you know, we're allergic to mediocrity. So with that being said, wherever I'm at, there's still somewhere I need to go.
Yes,
So
I
I
agree.
surround myself with people that's where I want to go.
Mentorship never ends. So I'll tell you right now, I have several people that are still mentors, and mentorship has seasonality to it too. Someone was your mentor for that season, that transaction, that transition, whatever it was. And then you may move on to someone else who's a mentor for this new season. So it is always a give and a take from that perspective. So I encourage everyone who's listening, who are you mentoring, and who and how are you being mentored? I think that's really important, and that never stops throughout your career. I believe in being a constant student and learning, because you never know where the next lesson is going to come from. I'll tell you, the other day I was meeting with someone, and they ask you a series of questions of, are you an expert in this, expert in that? And I never will typically give myself, say, the highest point of the perfection, because nobody has perfection. And so I'm just like, no, I think I'm about right here. And that's close maybe, but I always know there's something that I could know or do or learn to do differently or better. And when you think about technology, you think about just the speed of information these days, there's so much that we can continue to learn. So I encourage everyone to be a lifelong learner. I think that will pay off, and to be curious. I think sometimes we can be rooted in what we believe, but we don't know what we don't know. So in order for you to uncover that or to discover that, you got to be curious.
I agree, man. And going back to the point that you made initially, the curiosity with the sport of NASCAR. What are some of the things that you guys are doing to continue to make NASCAR to be something that not just people in our community are curious about, but maybe the non-traditional NASCAR fan becomes curious with the sport, and you can kind of grow what that viewership consists of? What are some of those things that you guys are doing in 2025 and beyond?
Yes. Couple things that stand out. So we will be doing our Chicago Street Race for the third time. That's a way. I mean, that's something that's never happened in the 77-year history of the sport. That we took, a NASCAR sanctioned race and did it on the streets of a city. So you got these loud cars running through downtown Chicago. That is a way in which you grow the sport, because guess what? There's somebody who's either happy because the cars are there or upset because we had to block the roads. But guess what? Now they're experiencing NASCAR, and maybe they never had before. The other thing that I think about is how we're growing internationally. So we'll be hosting our race in Mexico this year. Super excited for that, to see how that will allow us to grow the sport, because one of our opportunities and goals is to expand our global footprint. And what better way to do it than to take a race to Mexico? So there's a lot of planning that's going on behind the scenes to ensure a successful event and race. But also you got to think about the logistics. Like, how do we get all of our stuff down to Mexico, and understand all the immigration laws that will need to be sort of in logistics that will need to be handled in order for that to be a success. The other thing is we just show up in spaces in ways that are authentic to us, but also authentic to the group that we're looking to attract. And so, we think about our various programs. We partner with a lot of influencers that help us extend our reach, because guess what? Maybe you're not checking for NASCAR, but you see this person on social media that you follow or interact with, or that you look to see what's trending, and they're at a NASCAR race. I'll tell you, my first year, one of the races I went to, I saw Desi Banks. I didn't expect to see Desi Banks there, but if Desi Banks is doing an influencer partnership with NASCAR, think about how his audience is helping us amplify the messaging and the curiosity of the sport. So those are some of the ways in which we're doing it. And there's some things that we've just always been doing. NASCAR's had a focus on expanding the sport and making it welcoming for people for a number of years. Our internship program is one way we do that. Another one is our Drive for Diversity program. That's where we get former collegiate athletes, because a lot of our pit crew members are former collegiate athletes. And so you'll see a lot of people like I have a close relationship with Bethune-Cookman University, which is local to us, and several of the pit crew members are graduates of Bethune-Cookman University. Also, for this past year at the Daytona 500, which was this month, we had Bethune-Cookman Marching Band perform in the pre-race ceremonies. Those are the ways in which we grow the sport. Those are the ways in which we welcome new people to the space, but also nurture the people that have always been in the sport. NASCAR got its roots in let's say the folks that were running and trying to transport moonshine liquor back in the day. So it's been a sport that has been a little rebellious, and there's no reason why that needs to stop. But also we want to make sure that people understand our roots, but also understand what we are anchored to. I think you can look at some companies and they may be anchored to the past. Well, we're not anchored to the past. We're anchored to the future. Our president, Steve Phelps, always reminds us the best is yet to come. And so I firmly believe that.
Those were jewels to say the least, man, because a lot of that I didn't know. I knew about Drive for Diversity, but a lot of the other things you mentioned, I didn't realize that was all in motion. I'm certain that our viewers and listeners, you just educated them with all of those, very important details and the commitment that NASCAR is making to grow the sport. I'm certain that as your president said, the best is yet to come.
Yes.
So as we close out, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to leave our viewers and listeners with 3 things that you feel will help them prepare for takeoff.
Okay, help you prepare for takeoff. Let me think. First thing I'm going to say is closed mouths don't get fed. You got to answer what you want. You got to let the universe, let people know this is the direction you want to go, what you need, and other people call that manifestation. So whatever you want to call it, closed mouths don't get fed. Next, I would say observe. Listen and observe. We talked about this earlier, how you were, raised and just listen. I was raised and observe. I think those are things that help you prepare for takeoff. And then finally, I would say strive for excellence. Don't let your foot off the gas. Strive for excellence, because if you keep excellence as your North Star, you'll do just fine.
I love that. Don't take your foot off the gas. Bro, I might have to use that one. Don't take your
Yeah,
foot off the gas.
you can use it. You can use it. Look, I love it, but that's real. A lot of times you get opportunities, and I think the biggest downfall in anybody's career is complacency. So when I say don't let off the gas, that means don't get complacent. Don't let off the gas. Keep going. Keep striving. And there's going to be challenges. There's going to be obstacles that are getting in your way. But if you keep, closed mouths don't get fed, you listen, you observe, and you're striving for excellence, there won't be room to let off the gas. So keep it going.
You're right. And especially if you continue to find yourself in new circles and you begin to realize that I thought I was at the end of the race, but there's still more track to go. Because now look at all these brothers and sisters that are doing these phenomenal things. Who knew that I could do this? Who knew I could do that? Because once you go to another level, you have a different view. And
For sure.
and to quote TD Jakes, so you can't get mad that the pig can't see what the giraffe can see. He can only see from his point of view. So
For sure.
as we elevate, our point of view changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we have the right people around us, whether that's our wives, our husbands, our business partners, our colleagues, to be able to open our eyes and, like you said, to surround yourself by people that are going to hold you accountable. Or you don't want to surround yourself by people who are yes people. A lot of the people who have come to their own demise based on their own vices, especially in entertainment, is because they surround themselves with yes people. Nobody that's going to know to tell them you have a drug problem. No one's just going to tell them you need to get help for this, you need to get help for that. You have to surround yourself by people that are going to hold me accountable. These are my day ones. These are the people that I know if they're telling me this is what it is. And
For sure. That
so
goes back to that personal board of directors too. So all of that is important. And before we sign out, I just want to invite everybody to a NASCAR race. If you've never been before, check us out on TV. But more importantly, come see us in real life, because I think that in real life, I think the young folks say IRL, it's a completely different experience when you can feel the excitement, you can smell the rubber, you can hear the noise and how loud the cars are. That's something that kicks it up a notch. And I also encourage everyone to check out our documentary on Netflix titled Full Speed. You'll learn a lot about the sport and even some of the drama that takes place in the sport. So it's a good watch, but it'll definitely get you informed for when you check out that first race.
Yet to make it to a race. So I myself have to go to a race, whether it's at Delaware Motor Speedway or down to Daytona Beach. I heard it's a whole vibe, especially if you're there in person.
For sure. We got to make it happen, Terry. We'll make it happen. You know some people.
I appreciate it. My brother, he was somebody that he was at the time living in Richmond. He found himself at the track and he was doing some things in the sport. He was dealing with a female who was looking to transition into the sport. So there was a lot that he shared with me during that period of time. But now that we've had this conversation, I got to pull up, as they say.
There you go. Come on, check us out. We'd be happy to have you.
I appreciate it. And last, man, just wanted to give you the opportunity to share any of your contact details on social media, whatever information you feel comfortable with sharing.
Yes, I would love to connect with everybody. Please find me on LinkedIn, John Ferguson. There's only one of us that's working with NASCAR, so please find me and send me a message there. I'd love to connect and build.
Thank you so much for sharing so much of your time with us. I definitely appreciate it. And we're always giving out flowers, but as brothers, we don't receive our flowers as much. So please allow me to give you your much deserved virtual flowers for all of your continued success and your commitment to excellence.
I appreciate that, Terry.
Just want
That
to
means a lot.
Bro, I'm so proud of you, and I'm always watching you on LinkedIn doing your thing, and you're doing it on a high level. And not only are you doing it on a high level, NASCAR is doing it on a high level. And I know what your commitment to mentorship is because I see it in real time. As they say, people believe what they see more so than what they hear. I've been able to actually see the work that you're doing. So much continued success. Just know and believe that me and my entire team will be cheering you on from maybe not from the pit group, but maybe from the stands somewhere. I wanted to thank our viewers and listeners and your continued support. We don't take that for granted. As you know, every week we're going to continue to bring you proven professionals and rising entrepreneurs, and all of these conversations, just like this one, will help you prepare for takeoff. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Terry. I look forward to staying in touch, my brother.